The stars disappeared one by one as massive black shapes moved across the sky above Earth. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main window of Liberty 7, the orbital defense station that had been his home for the past 2 years. He had seen many things in space, but nothing like this. "Sir, we have a problem," said Lieutenant Amy Chen from her position at the tactical station. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "Long-range sensors are picking up over 300 ships approaching Earth." Jake walked over to Amy's station and looked at the display screen. The numbers made his stomach drop. Each ship was at least twice the size of Earth's largest space station. The biggest one was so massive it could probably hold a small city inside it. "Any response to our communication attempts?" Jake asked. Sergeant Pete Williams shook his head from the communications desk. "Nothing, sir. They're not answering any of our signals, but they're definitely scanning us. Dr. Rodriguez says their sensors are more advanced than anything we've ever seen." Dr. Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her science station. She had been studying the alien ships for the past hour, and what she found made her hands shake slightly. "Captain, their technology is incredible. Their energy shields alone are probably centuries ahead of ours. And those weapons, I've never seen power readings like this." Jake nodded slowly. He had expected this day might come, but hoping for something and being ready for it were two different things. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At their current speed, about 6 hours," Amy replied. "But sir, they could probably get here much faster if they wanted to. It's like they're taking their time on purpose." The alien fleet moved through space like a dark cloud. At the front was a ship so large it cast shadows on the smaller vessels around it. Inside that ship, Admiral Korth stood on the bridge looking at the small blue planet ahead of them. His reptilian eyes studied the primitive world with satisfaction. "Report," Admiral Korth said to his second-in-command, Commander Vex. "The planet appears to be inhabited by a species that has barely reached their own star system," Commander Vex replied. "They have some small space stations and a few primitive ships, but nothing that could threaten us. Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours." Admiral Korth smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Perfect. Another easy conquest for the Empire. Have they tried to communicate with us?" "Yes, Admiral. They've been sending signals for the past hour. Primitive. Radio waves mostly. Should we respond?" "Not yet. Let them worry for a while. Fear makes surrender much easier." Admiral Korth walked to the large window at the front of the bridge. "How many populated worlds have we conquered this year, Commander?" 17, Admiral. This will be the 18th. "And how many of them fought back?" Commander Vex checked his datapad. "Only 3 attempted resistance. They were destroyed within hours." Admiral Korth nodded. It was always the same. The Draconian Empire had been expanding for over 200 years, and they had never met a species that could truly challenge them. This small blue world would be no different. Back on Liberty 7, Jake was coordinating with Earth's military leaders. The communication screen showed General Frank Taylor at Earth Defense Command and Colonel Kate Brooks at the International Space Force headquarters. "What's our current readiness status?" Jake asked. General Taylor's face was grim. "All Earth defense forces are on high alert. We've scrambled every fighter we have and activated all planetary defense systems. But Jake, I'll be honest with you. Against a fleet this size with technology this advanced, we're looking at maybe 6 hours of resistance before they overwhelm us." Colonel Brooks added, "The President is meeting with world leaders right now. They're discussing surrender terms." Jake felt a cold anger in his chest. Earth was his home, and humanity had worked too hard to reach the stars just to give up now. "Ma'am, with respect, maybe we should fight before we talk about surrendering." "Captain Morrison," General Taylor said carefully, "I understand your feelings, but we have to be realistic. Our weapons might not even get through their shields, and they have over 300 ships." Dr. Rodriguez walked over to Jake's communication station. "General, I've been analyzing their fleet composition. Most of their ships appear to be designed for intimidation and overwhelming force rather than precision combat. They're used to fighting enemies who can't fight back effectively. What are you suggesting, Doctor? Colonel Brooks asked. Maybe they've never faced an enemy who was actually prepared for them, Lisa replied. Before anyone could respond, Sergeant Williams called out from his station. Captain, incoming transmission from the alien fleet. It's on all frequencies, broadcasting to the entire planet. Jake nodded. Put it on the main screen. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge step back. Admiral Korth was clearly not human. His skin was dark green and covered in scales. His eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, and his mouth was full of sharp teeth. When he spoke, his voice was deep and threatening. People of Earth, Admiral Korth began. I am Admiral Korth of the Draconian Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have 24 hours to surrender completely. Lay down all weapons, shut down all military forces, and prepare for occupation. If you resist, your cities will burn and your species will be enslaved. If you surrender peacefully, you will be allowed to live under our rule. The transmission showed images of other worlds the Draconians had conquered. Burning cities, destroyed armies, and populations forced to work in alien factories. The message was clear. Submit or be destroyed. You have 24 hours, Admiral, Korth repeated. Use them wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of Liberty 7 in silence. Amy Chen was the first to speak. Sir, what are your orders? Jake looked out at the massive alien fleet hanging in space above Earth like a promise of doom. But something in Admiral Korth's message bothered him. The alien commander seemed too confident, like he had never faced real resistance before. Our orders are to defend Earth, Jake said finally. Amy, start running tactical analysis on their fleet formation. Pete, contact all Earth Defense Forces and tell them to maintain radio silence from now on. Lisa, I want you to keep studying their technology. Look for weaknesses. And if we can't find any weaknesses, Amy asked quietly. Jake smiled grimly. Then we'll make some. The alien fleet continued its slow approach to Earth, confident in their superiority. They had no idea that the small blue planet below them had been preparing for this moment much longer than they could imagine. The next morning, silver ships descended from the dark fleet above Earth like falling stars. They landed in major cities around the world, each one the size of a large building. Commander Vex stepped out of the primary landing craft in Washington, D.C., followed by 12 Draconian warriors in black armor. The aliens were impressive and terrifying. They stood over 7 feet tall with thick scales covering their bodies and claws on their hands. Their weapons hummed with energy that made the air shimmer around them. Commander Vex looked at the humans who had gathered to meet them and felt satisfied. These primitive creatures looked properly afraid. President Helen Carter waited with her security team on the steps of a government building. She was a small woman compared to the massive aliens, but she stood straight and calm. Next to her stood Director Paul Martinez, her chief security advisor, and several other officials. I am Commander Vex of the Draconian Empire, the alien leader announced. His voice was deep and threatening. I speak for Admiral Korth. You will surrender your world to us. President Carter stepped forward. I am President Carter. We are willing to discuss terms. Commander Vex smiled, showing sharp teeth. He pulled out a small device that projected a holographic map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems glowed red, showing the size of the Draconian Empire. This is what we have conquered, Commander Vex said. Over 10,000 worlds. Your Earth is just one small planet. You cannot resist us. The humans looked at the map with what appeared to be amazement and fear. Dr. Sam Johnson, a physicist who had been brought to examine the alien technology, stepped closer to the hologram. This is incredible, Dr. Johnson said, sounding impressed. How do you travel between so many stars so quickly? Commander Vex enjoyed the question. These primitives were in awe of Draconian technology, as they should be. We use hyperspace drives that bend space itself. Your species probably still uses chemical rockets. Amazing, said Engineer Maria Santos, studying the alien ship with wide eyes. The energy readings from your vessel are beyond anything we have. How do you generate so much power? The other Draconian warriors relaxed slightly. This was going exactly as it always did. The primitive species would ask about their technology, be overwhelmed by Draconian superiority, and surrender quickly. "We harness the power of artificial stars," Commander Vex replied proudly. "Each of our ships carries enough energy to destroy your largest cities." To demonstrate, he pointed his weapon at a nearby military vehicle. A beam of bright plasma shot out and melted the truck into a puddle of metal in seconds. The humans gasped and stepped back. "Impressive," President Carter said quietly. "We clearly cannot match such weapons." Commander Vex nodded with satisfaction. "Finally, you understand. Admiral Korth will accept your surrender now. Your military forces will lay down their weapons, and your leaders will report to our ships for processing." But President Carter shook her head. "I need more time to convince our people. 24 hours is not enough to organize a planetary surrender." Commander Vex's eyes narrowed. "You are trying to delay." "No," Director Martinez said quickly. "Our world has many different governments. We need time to contact them all and explain the situation. Surely a few more hours will not matter to such a powerful empire." The Draconian commander considered. This. It was true that most primitive worlds had multiple tribal governments that needed time to coordinate surrender. "You have 12 more hours. Then we begin destroying your cities." While the aliens made their threats above ground, a very different conversation was happening in secure bunkers deep beneath major cities around the world. Colonel Rick Stevens sat in a command center that looked nothing like the primitive facilities the Draconians expected to find on Earth. "Report from all stations," Colonel Stevens said into his headset. Captain Tony Lee's voice came through clearly from New York. "Alien landing craft is being monitored. We have full sensor coverage and weapon locks established." Major Nina Foster reported from London. "Same here. Their ship's shields are strong, but we're detecting several potential weak points." Dr. Alex Turner spoke from a research facility hidden beneath Los Angeles. "I'm getting excellent readings on their technology. It's advanced but not as far ahead as they think. Maybe 50 years, not 500. Colonel Stevens smiled grimly. The Draconians had made their first mistake by landing on Earth and letting humans examine their technology up close. They had also made their second mistake by underestimating human intelligence networks. "Any problems with the quantum communication grid?" Colonel Stevens asked. "Negative," replied Specialist Janet Kim from a facility in Tokyo. "The aliens can't detect our real communication system. They think we're still using primitive radio waves." The quantum entanglement network had been humanity's greatest secret for the past decade. It allowed instant communication across any distance without using signals that could be intercepted or jammed. The Draconians had no idea that every conversation they had with human leaders was being shared instantly with military commanders around the world. Back in Washington, Dr. Johnson was asking more questions about Draconian technology. But his questions were not random. Each one was carefully designed to gather specific information about alien capabilities and weaknesses. "Your plasma weapons are fascinating," Dr. Johnson said. "Do they work the same way in different atmospheric conditions?" Commander Vex, enjoying the attention, explained how the weapons needed to be adjusted for different environments. He did not realize he was giving away tactical information that was being recorded and analyzed by hidden sensors. Engineer Santos asked about the alien ship's construction materials. "That hull plating looks incredibly strong. Is it some kind of metal we haven't discovered?" "It is composed of titanium alloy, reinforced with quantum-bonded carbon lattices," Commander Vex replied proudly. "Nothing on your primitive world could penetrate it." Santos nodded with apparent amazement, but she was actually calculating how Earth's newest armor-piercing rounds might perform against such materials. The deception continued for hours. Human scientists and engineers asked innocent questions while secretly gathering intelligence. The Draconians, convinced of their superiority, answered freely. They had conquered so many primitive worlds that they had forgotten how to be cautious. Meanwhile, hidden facilities around the world buzzed with activity. Major Danny Clark supervised teams that appeared to be construction workers but were actually positioning advanced weapon systems. The building sites that looked like normal human infrastructure projects were actually concealed military installations. Dr. Rodriguez worked in a facility that the aliens believed was a primitive research center. In reality, it housed some of the most advanced computers on Earth, analyzing every piece of data gathered about Draconian technology. Their ships are powerful, Dr. Rodriguez reported to Colonel Stevens, but they're designed for fighting enemies who can't fight back effectively. Their formation and tactics assume complete technological superiority. What about their numbers? Colonel Stevens asked. Large fleet, but spread out for intimidation rather than mutual defense. If we could hit them simultaneously from multiple directions, their formation would become a weakness instead of a strength. As the day progressed, the Draconians became increasingly confident that Earth would surrender without a fight. Commander Vex reported to Admiral Korth that the humans were clearly overwhelmed by Draconian technology and were preparing for peaceful surrender. Admiral Korth was pleased. Another world added to the Empire without wasting ammunition. Prepare the occupation forces, but in hidden bunkers around Earth, human military leaders were preparing something very different. The Draconians thought they were facing a primitive world full of frightened creatures. They had no idea that Earth had been watching the expansion of their empire for years, studying their tactics and preparing for exactly this moment. The trap was almost ready to spring. Admiral Korth grew tired of waiting. The humans had been asking for more time for 2 days now, and his patience was running out. These primitive creatures needed to learn that the Draconian Empire was not something they could delay. Commander Vex, Admiral Korth said into his communication device, the time for talk is over. Find their largest military base and destroy it. Show these humans what happens when they waste our time. Yes, Admiral, Commander Vex replied from his position on the surface. We have located what appears to be their primary defense facility. It's called Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. Perfect. Order the destroyer squadron to demonstrate our power. Reduce that base to ash. 5 Draconian destroyers broke away from the main fleet and descended toward Earth. Each ship was over a mile long and bristled with plasma cannons that could melt through solid rock. The ships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Captain Jake Morrison watched from Liberty 7 as the alien ships approached the Colorado base. Pete, are you getting readings from Peterson? Sergeant Williams checked his instruments. Yes, sir. The base is showing all normal operations. No evacuation, no panic. It's like they don't even know the aliens are coming. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her station with a strange expression. Captain, I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from that area. The base is showing power signatures that don't match our normal equipment. What kind of signatures? Jake asked. I'm not sure. They're heavily shielded, but there's definitely something down there that's not in any of our technical manuals. The Draconian destroyers reached attack position above Peterson Air Force Base. The lead ship powered up its main plasma batteries, energy crackling along the weapon barrels. The base below looked small and helpless, with a few old buildings and what appeared to be outdated aircraft on the landing strips. Target locked, the Draconian weapons officer reported. Firing main batteries, brilliant beams of superheated plasma lanced down from the alien ships, carrying enough energy to vaporize an entire city block. The humans below should have been running in terror, but instead they seemed to be calmly going about their business. The plasma beam struck something invisible 50 feet above the base and scattered harmlessly in all directions. Where there should have been destruction, there was only a shimmering field of energy that absorbed the alien weapons fire like it was nothing. What? Admiral Korth stared at his display screen in disbelief. How is this possible? Commander Vex was equally confused. Admiral, their primitive base appears to have energy shields, but that's impossible. Our scouts confirmed they don't have that technology. Fire again, Admiral Korth ordered. Full power. All 5 destroyers opened fire simultaneously, pouring enough energy into their attack to destroy a small moon. The plasma beams struck the invisible shield and spread out in beautiful patterns of light, but they could not penetrate whatever was protecting the human base. Then something happened that no Draconian had expected. The base fired back, Massive energy beams erupted from hidden positions around Peterson Air Force Base, striking the Draconian destroyers with pinpoint accuracy. The alien ships rocked under the impact, their own shields flaring as they absorbed the unexpected attack. "Impossible," Admiral Korth shouted. "How do they have weapons that can penetrate our shields?" The answer came in the form of more weapons fire from positions the Draconians had never detected. What they had thought were primitive communication towers were actually advanced railguns. What looked like normal buildings housed particle beam weapons. The entire base was a fortress that had been designed to look helpless while hiding devastating firepower. On the ground at Peterson, Major Danny Clark smiled as he watched his hidden weapons tear into the alien ships. "All stations, this is Clark. Looks like our little surprise worked. Continue firing until those ships retreat or are destroyed." The Draconian destroyers tried to return fire, but their weapons were having no effect on the human shields. Worse, more bases around the world were powering up similar defenses. Admiral Korth watched in growing horror as every military installation his fleet targeted turned out to be far more advanced than his scouts had reported. Commander Vex and his ground team in Washington suddenly found themselves in serious trouble. The humans who had seemed so amazed by Draconian technology were now pointing weapons at them that looked nothing like the primitive firearms the aliens had expected. "Commander Vex," said Colonel Kate Brooks, stepping out from behind a building, with a squad of soldiers in advanced armor. "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." The Draconian commander raised his plasma rifle, but before he could fire, one of the human soldiers shot it out of his hands with a beam of energy that cut right through the alien weapon like it was made of paper. "How?" Commander Vex demanded. "You're primitives, you don't have this technology," Colonel Brooks smiled. "That's what we wanted you to think. The truth is, we've been watching your empire expand for the past 20 years. We've studied your tactics, analyzed your technology, and prepared for this day." Dr. Johnson stepped forward, no longer pretending to be amazed by alien science. "Your weapons are impressive, but they're not as advanced as you claimed. We've had similar technology for a decade. We just kept it hidden." Maria Santos nodded. "Your ships are powerful, but they're designed for fighting enemies who can't fight back. You've gotten lazy from conquering helpless worlds." In space, Captain Morrison coordinated with other defense stations as more human weapons came online around the planet. "Amy, what's the status on the lunar installations?" Lieutenant Chen checked her instruments. "Luna Base is reporting ready. Commander Steve Parker says his ships are in position and waiting for orders." "Ships?" Jake asked. "What ships?" Dr. Rodriguez smiled. "Captain, there's something you need to know. Luna Base isn't just a research station. It's been building warships for the past 15 years. Ships designed specifically to fight the Draconian fleet." On Luna Base, Commander Steve Parker watched through his command center windows as hangar doors opened across the lunar surface. Dozens of sleek human warships emerged from hidden bays that had been disguised as mining operations and research facilities. "All ships, this is Parker," he said into his communication system. "The Draconians wanted to see what Earth could do. Let's show them." Admiral Korth stared at his tactical display as new contacts appeared throughout the solar system. Human ships were emerging from asteroid bases, hidden stations, and camouflaged facilities he never knew existed. What he had thought was a primitive world with a few simple space stations was revealing itself to be a military power that had been preparing for war. "How many ships do they have?" Admiral Korth demanded. His tactical officer studied the readings, with growing alarm. "Admiral, I count over 200 human vessels, and they're all using technology we didn't know they possessed." 200 ships? That's impossible. Our scouts said they barely had a dozen primitive craft." "Admiral," Commander Vex's voice came through the communication system, strained with shock. "The humans have been deceiving us. They're not primitive. They've been studying us and preparing for our arrival." Back on Earth, Dr. Alex Turner emerged from his hidden research facility with a team of scientists who were no longer pretending to be impressed by alien technology. Instead, they were carrying equipment that made the Draconian devices look simple by comparison. "Commander Vex," Dr. Turner said politely, "we've been analyzing your ships while you were busy threatening us. Would you like to know what we found? The Draconian commander backed away, but human soldiers in powered armor surrounded him and his team. Their weapons hummed with energy that made the air itself seem dangerous. Your quantum disruptors are quite clever, Dr. Turner continued, but we've developed countermeasures. In fact, we've been testing them on your landing craft. I don't think you'll be able to take off. Commander Vex tried to contact his ship, but got only static. The humans had somehow cut off his communication and disabled his escape route. Admiral Korth realized with growing horror that his supposedly easy conquest had become a nightmare. The primitive world he had come to conquer was fighting back with technology that matched his own, and tactics that seemed designed specifically to counter Draconian strategies. For the first time in his career, Admiral Korth faced the possibility that the Draconian Empire might not win. Admiral Korth stared at his command screen as more human ships appeared around his fleet. What had started as a simple conquest was turning into the worst military disaster in Draconian history. His communications officer was receiving panicked reports from ships throughout the fleet. "Admiral, the humans have some kind of cloaking technology," reported Captain Zeth from the destroyer Dark Talon. "Our sensors can't detect their ships until they're right on top of us." "Admiral," came another voice. "This is Captain Drex on the Void Hunter. We're surrounded by human minds. They were hidden in what we thought was space debris." Admiral Korth felt his confidence cracking like ice in the sun. How is this possible? Our scouts surveyed this system for months. There were no hidden bases, no advanced technology, no military fleets. Commander Vex's voice came through the communication system from the surface. "Admiral, I think the humans have been planning this for years. Everything we saw was fake. They made their world look primitive, on purpose." Captain Jake Morrison coordinated the orbital defense from Liberty 7 as thousands of hidden weapon platforms came online around Earth. What the Draconians had thought was harmless space junk was actually a massive defense network that had been built over decades. "Amy, activate Sector 7 through 12, Jake ordered. Lieutenant Chen's fingers moved across her control panel. "Activating now, sir. All platforms are showing green." Explosions of light filled the space around Earth as automated defense platforms emerged from their camouflage. Asteroids split open to reveal missile launchers. Old satellites transformed into laser batteries. Even some of the space debris turned out to be robot fighters that sprang to life when activated. Dr. Rodriguez watched her instruments with amazement. "Captain, I'm reading over 5,000 separate weapon platforms. How long has Earth been building this defense network?" "According to these files," Sergeant Williams said, checking his computer, "construction started 23 years ago, when our deep space telescopes first detected the Draconian Empire. On Luna Base, Commander Steve Parker led his hidden fleet toward the Draconian Armada. His ships looked nothing like the crude human spacecraft the aliens expected. They were sleek, fast, and armed with weapons designed specifically to fight. Draconian technology. All ships, this is Parker," he said into his communication system. "Remember, we've trained for this battle for 15 years. We know their tactics, their weaknesses, and their ship designs better than they do. Let's show them what Earth can really do." Captain Eric Davis led a squadron of advanced fighters from Titan Station. His ships had been hidden in what the Draconians thought was a simple research outpost. In reality, Titan had been converted into a massive military base years ago. "This is Davis to all fighter wings," Eric said as his squadron raced toward the alien fleet. "Target their communication arrays. First, if we can blind them, they can't coordinate their defense." The Draconian fleet tried to respond to the human attack, but they were facing problems they had never encountered before. Their formation was designed to intimidate primitive enemies, not fight a coordinated military force that knew their weaknesses. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "the humans are jamming our communications. They know our frequencies somehow." Admiral Korth cursed in his native language. "Switch to backup channels." "Sir, they're jamming those too. It's like they've been studying our communication systems for years." That was exactly what had happened. Dr. Johnson and his team had been intercepting Draconian communications from their deep space monitoring stations for decades. They knew every frequency, every encryption code, and every tactical procedure the aliens used. Major Beth Collins coordinated bomber wings launching from hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt. Her ships had been disguised as mining equipment for years, waiting for this moment. "All bomber groups, this is Collins," she said. "Target the Draconian command ships. Our intelligence says their admiral will be on the largest vessel. If we can capture or destroy their leadership, the rest of the fleet might surrender." The Draconian destroyers that had attacked Earth's bases found themselves trapped in a nightmare. Every time they tried to retreat, more human weapons appeared to block their path. The orbital defense network was like a giant web that tightened around them with each passing minute. "This is Captain Zeth," came a desperate voice over the Draconian communication channel. "My ship is taking heavy damage. Request permission to withdraw." "Denied," Admiral Korth replied, though his own ship was shaking under human weapons fire. "We cannot show weakness to these primitives." But they were not fighting primitives anymore. The humans had revealed themselves to be a military force that had spent decades preparing for this exact battle. Every Draconian tactic had been studied and countered. Every alien technology had been analyzed and matched. On Earth, Colonel Rick Stevens watched the battle from his command center deep underground. Screens showed the fight happening in space above, and the news was good. "Sir," reported Major Tony Lee, "all Draconian ground teams have been captured or neutralized. Commander Vex and his soldiers are in custody." "Excellent," Colonel Stevens replied. "What about their landing craft?" "Dr. Turner's quantum disruptors worked perfectly," said Major Nina Foster. "None of the alien ships can take off. They're stuck on our planet." Dr. Alex Turner smiled as he examined the captured Draconian technology. "Colonel, their equipment is impressive but not magical. We can understand it, copy it, and improve on it. In 6 months, we'll have ships better than theirs." The battle in space was reaching its climax. The human fleet had completely surrounded the Draconian Armada, and Admiral Korth realized his situation was hopeless. His ships were designed to fight enemies who couldn't fight back effectively. Against a prepared military force with equal technology, the Draconian advantages disappeared. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it on screen," Admiral Korth ordered. Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the display, speaking from Liberty 7. Behind him, Lieutenant Chen and the rest of his crew worked at stations filled with technology the Draconians had never seen before. "Admiral Korth," Jake said calmly, "this is Captain Morrison of Earth Defense Command. Your fleet is surrounded and outgunned. Your ground forces are captured. Your landing craft are disabled. I suggest you consider surrender." Admiral Korth's pride made him want to fight to the death, but he was also a practical military commander. His fleet was trapped, his invasion had failed, and continuing to fight would only get more of his people killed. "What are your terms?" Admiral Korth asked through gritted teeth. "Simple," Jake replied. "Surrender your weapons, submit to inspection, and prepare to return to your empire with a message." "What message?" Jake's expression became serious. "That Earth is not a helpless world waiting to be conquered. We are a military power that has been preparing for interstellar conflict for decades. Any empire that threatens Earth or other innocent worlds will face the same fate as your fleet." Admiral Korth looked around his bridge at his defeated crew. The great Draconian Empire had finally met an enemy they could not conquer. For the first time in 200 years of expansion, a Draconian fleet was forced to surrender. The trap had been sprung perfectly, and humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not as victims, but as defenders ready to fight any threat that came from the stars. Admiral Korth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching human ships surround his once mighty fleet. The proud Draconian Armada that had conquered countless worlds was now powerless, trapped in Earth's orbital defense network like insects. "In a web." "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "human boarding parties are requesting permission to come aboard." Korth closed his eyes for a moment. In 200 years of Draconian expansion, no enemy force had ever boarded a flagship of the Empire. Today, that would change. "Grant them permission," he said finally, "but maintain dignity. We are still soldiers of the Empire. Captain Jake Morrison led the boarding party that came aboard the Void Dominion. He was accompanied by Dr. Rodriguez, who carried scanning equipment and a squad of human marines in advanced armor. The humans moved through the alien ship with confidence as if they belonged there. "Admiral Korth," Jake said respectfully when they reached the bridge. "I'm Captain Morrison. You fought well, but your war is over." Admiral Korth studied the human. "Captain." Morrison was smaller than a Draconian warrior, but there was steel in his eyes that commanded respect. "You have won this battle, Captain, but the Draconian Empire has thousands of ships. When they learn what happened here, they will send a fleet so large it will blot out your sun." Jake smiled. "Admiral, I don't think you understand what really happened here today." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward with her scanning equipment. "Admiral, while we were fighting your fleet, our computers were also breaking into your communication systems. We now have access to your entire military network." Korth felt ice in his stomach. "That's impossible. Our encryption is unbreakable." "Not for us," Dr. Rodriguez replied. "We've been studying your technology for 20 years. Your codes, your ship designs, your tactical manuals. We know more about the Draconian Empire than most of your own officers do." Lieutenant Amy Chen's voice came through Jake's communication device from Liberty 7. "Captain, Dr. Johnson has finished his analysis of their fleet communication logs. We now have the locations and movements of every Draconian ship in this sector of the galaxy." Admiral Korth realized with growing horror that the defeat was much worse than he had thought. The humans had not just captured his fleet. They had gained access to military secrets that would compromise the entire empire. On Earth, President Helen Carter addressed the world from the United Nations building. Behind her stood Director Paul Martinez and military leaders from every major nation. The speech was being broadcast not just to Earth, but to the captured Draconian communication arrays that would carry the message across their empire. "People of Earth and beings throughout the galaxy," President Carter began. "Today marks a new chapter in human history. The Draconian Empire came to our world expecting to find a primitive species that would surrender without a fight. Instead, they discovered that humanity has been preparing for this moment for decades." The broadcast showed images of the captured Draconian fleet, their mighty ships now powerless and surrounded by human vessels. It showed the hidden weapons that had defended Earth and the advanced technology that humanity had kept secret for years. "Let this message reach every corner of the galaxy," President Carter continued. "Earth is not a helpless world waiting to be conquered. We are a military power prepared to defend ourselves and any other innocent worlds threatened by aggressive empires." On the Moon, Commander Steve Parker supervised the inspection of captured Draconian technology. His engineers worked alongside alien prisoners, learning the secrets of hyperspace drives and advanced weapons systems. But Parker noticed something interesting about the alien prisoners. "They're not as advanced as they pretended to be," Parker reported to Earth Command. "Their technology is impressive, but it's old. They've been using the same ship designs for over a century. They got lazy from conquering worlds that couldn't fight back." Dr. Alex Turner had reached the same conclusion from his analysis of captured equipment. "The Draconians stopped innovating years ago," he reported. "They found a formula that worked against primitive enemies and stuck with it. Meanwhile, we've been constantly improving and adapting." Admiral Korth was brought to a secure facility on Earth where he met with Colonel Rick Stevens and other human leaders. The alien commander expected to be tortured or executed, but instead he found himself in a comfortable room being offered food and medical care. "Why are you treating me well?" Admiral Korth asked. "I came to conquer your world." Colonel Stevens sat across from him at a simple table. "Because we're not like your empire, Admiral. We don't conquer innocent worlds or enslave other species. We defend ourselves and help others do the same. You speak of defense, but you have weapons that could threaten our entire empire." "That's right," Colonel Stevens agreed. "And we want your empire to know that. Not because we plan to attack you, but because we want you to think twice before attacking anyone else." Dr. Turner entered the room, carrying a data pad filled with technical information. "Admiral, we've been analyzing your empire's expansion patterns. In the past 50 years, you've conquered 47 worlds. Most of them had populations that couldn't defend themselves." Admiral Korth shifted uncomfortably. Conquest is the way of the empire. The strong rule the weak. Not anymore, Dr. Turner replied. We're sharing our defensive technology with every world your empire has threatened. Soon there won't be any helpless planets left for you to conquer. The implications of this hit Admiral Korth like a physical blow. If Earth gave advanced weapons to other worlds, the Draconian Empire's expansion would stop completely. Worse, some of the worlds they had already conquered might rebel with human help. 3 weeks later, Admiral Korth stood on the bridge of his flagship as it prepared to leave Earth's solar system. Most of his fleet had been returned to him, but with important modifications. Human engineers had installed monitoring equipment that would track the ship's movements and prevent them from attacking innocent worlds. Captain Morrison came aboard for a final meeting. Admiral, your ships are free to return to your empire, but they're also carrying something special. What do you mean? Jake smiled. Complete technical specifications for Earth's defensive technology. We're giving them to your government as a gift. Admiral Korth stared at him in confusion. You're giving us your military secrets, why? Because we want your empire to understand exactly what they're dealing with, Jake explained. Your leaders need to know that humanity isn't just another primitive species they can bully. We're a power that can defend ourselves and help others defend themselves too. And if my empire chooses to fight anyway? Jake's expression became serious. Then you'll discover that Earth's defenses were just the beginning. We've been preparing for interstellar conflict for 20 years, Admiral. We're ready for whatever comes next. As the Draconian fleet limped away from Earth, Admiral Korth realized that everything had changed. His empire had thought they were the supreme military power in the galaxy, but they had just met their match. Worse, the humans were not content to simply defend themselves. They were actively working to protect other worlds from Draconian aggression. Earth construction began on humanity's first interstellar expeditionary fleet. The ships would carry the same message that Admiral Korth was taking back to his empire. Earth was no longer hiding. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy as a force for defense and protection. The age of easy conquest was over. Any empire that threatened innocent worlds would now face humanity's response. And as word spread throughout the galaxy about Earth's victory over the mighty Draconian fleet, other species began to hope that they too might find protection among the stars. The humans had kept their promise. They had defended their world and shown the galaxy that no empire, no matter how powerful, could conquer a people prepared to fight for their freedom.